All right, ladies, welcome back. Divas and dudes back at home. Thanks for joining us. This is three, week three of Meal Prep Magic. So hopefully you all have been enjoying the content so far. We have a delicious recipe today, so I'm happy to see so many bright, shiny faces this morning, getting up early to be here with me today. So again, my name is Raquel de Hoyos. I am, I don't know, chef, quirky extraordinaire, cook extraordinaire. Love being with you all, sharing these recipes. Thought that it would be helpful to, as we kind of get back into our routine after summer is slowly coming to a close, and talk a little bit about meal prep, share some good recipes, share some good tips. And so hopefully that has all been valuable to you and you've been putting some of it into practice. Today we have an awesome topic and an awesome recipe. So today we're going to be making a creamy broccoli and potato soup. Courtesy of my lovely assistant, Rosie. We are going to make it in an Instapot. A few of you mentioned that you have that. We wanted to make sure we had a vessel big enough for this pot of soup. Soup is kind of a go-to, right? When you think of meal planning, especially as we warm it or go into the cooler months, soup is just kind of one of those comforting things. This is a really simple one. I have treated us with some ingredients that I typically, kind of reserve, things like butter, and delicious kinds of cheese. But this one really calls for it. And so I think, these are some of these combinations of flavors that just go really well together. But you want something hearty, especially in those cooler months. And this one is going to be your go-to. I guarantee it. So I'll walk us through what we have for ingredients. I'm going to show you how to use this if you haven't used it, because this was the first time for me. So that was a lot of fun playing with it. And then we're going to let it do its thing while we talk today about food budgeting and food costing. And you all strike me as very food savvy and food budgeting savvy. So I'm looking forward to hearing what tips you all want to share. But I've got some good ones here and some additional resources for you all to check out. So we'll spend a little bit of time on that, but let's get into the recipe. So for our creamy broccoli and potato soup, we have obviously the broccoli. So I used two large heads of broccoli, and it was a little bit over 2.5 pounds. So just kind of estimate that. And one thing I wanted to point out, so for today, just to make sure that we have enough time to do everything, I actually just quickly blanched it. So that's bringing a pot of water to a boil, quickly submerging that raw broccoli in there until it turns this beautiful bright green, so just like less than a minute, and then running it, draining it under some cold water, kind of shocking it so that it doesn't continue cooking. But this thing does the magic also, but I just want to make sure, given time, and you know how chatty I get, that we have enough time and you all aren't chewing on raw broccoli. So that's going to go in last also too. So I wanted to make sure we had kind of all the steps in place. So 2 heads of broccoli. We've got 2 pounds of yellow potatoes. You could use russets. That would work just fine. I'm kind of partial to yellow potatoes because they have kind of more of a creamier texture. So this is a creamy soup, but you notice there's no cream in it. We are using a little bit of butter. We are using some regular milk here. But we are not using cream. And I know sometimes people have sensitivities to things like that, or just diet-wise, we have to watch out for kind of higher calorie, higher fat ingredients. So we're going to do creamy through the ingredients, but no cream. So using a potato like this that has kind of more of a waxier texture will allow us to get that creamy kind of texture. And then we've got some unsalted butter. We're going to use half of this stick. We've also got 1 onion. Our favorite things here, celery. So we've got 4 stalks of celery. Oh, and one more thing I was going to show you. So when I cut down my broccoli, there is the stalk, right? And it looks like this. You can use this. Does anybody toss this or use it?
Yes.
I would use it. You know why? Because it's usually very sweet. Has anybody here had something called kohlrabi? They are a delicious vegetable and they taste very similar to broccoli, and they remind me of what this tastes like. And similar texture. They're round. They usually have like stems and leaves on them that you could also cook with, but they're delicious. And so I typically tend to just kind of cut this down. Sometimes you can use a peeler if there's kind of this tougher part on it, and then just chop it, slice it like you normally would, but it has great flavor. So just wanted to point that out. And then what else do we have? We've got olive oil, obviously, our vegetable stock, just regular plain vegetable stock. If you make your own, fantastic. If you wanted to watch your sodium, use a low sodium one. We've got our milk. And then for seasoning, pretty simple, salt, pepper, and then garlic powder. If you didn't have garlic powder, you could just use regular raw garlic, right? So not a lot of ingredients in this. And basically we're gonna chop some things, put it in the pot, saute it, let the potatoes finish cooking, and then add in the cheese, the spices, and our broccoli, and let that hang out for a few minutes while we have our discussion. And soup's going to be delicious. So it's going to start smelling really good in a minute here. But what I'm going to do first is turn this guy on and take the lid off. Okay. Wow, that really made an entrance, didn't it? Okay, so we are plugged in. And this has all sorts of features. So it serves as like you can fry things in it. You can use it like a pressure cooker, a steamer. You can slow cook like a regular crock pot, right? What I'm going to set is the sear saute setting. And it looks like it has a high and a low. So I'm going to just hit high. Because what we want is we're going to just melt our butter and our olive oil in here first so that we can saute the onions and the celery. I'm going to just set this to the side for a minute. This has 2 lids, right? But we're not going to use this one. We're using this separate one because we're going to be using the sort of the, the pressure cooker feature. Okay, so let me start with our butter and let that kind of melt with our olive oil. Does anybody know why I'm using both? Like, why couldn't I just use one or the other? Yes, very good. Someone has been doing their homework. Okay, so yeah, so olive oil has a higher smoke point than something like butter. They're both fats. So half a stick of butter and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. But I also like it for flavor. So I don't always do this, but when it's something like this, again, I'm kind of building the flavor right in this soup, and this is one of the ways. And yes, olive oil has that higher smoke point, so we're going to do a combination of that. So I'm going to let that melt and come up to temp a little bit, let it do its thing. Hope it's doing its thing. This thing doesn't quite tell me what it's doing. So, okay, so while that's happening, what I'm going to do is dice this onion. So just a regular, whatever your preference. Oops, I'm cutting the wrong side. My goodness. No, I was right. That's funny. Look, this looks like the root end, but that is actually the root end. All right, I am awake this morning. Okay, so we're going to dice up this onion, and then we're also going to dice our celery. And those are kind of like the basics, right? The good foundation for any kind of soup. You could do carrots, not in this one, although I have seen broccoli soup with a little bit of carrot in it. It gives it kind of a sweeter flavor, right? And that's okay. So for winter or fall, what are some of your favorite kind of go-to soups that you guys tend to cook?
Tortilla soup.
Ooh, tortilla soup is a good one. Yeah. Lentil is, yes. I've been wanting to do a lentil soup with you all. Maybe in the next round, we'll tackle a lentil soup. Chicken tortilla, lentil, anything else?
Pumpkin.
Ooh, pumpkin. Okay. And what else do you put in that?
It's pretty much onions, garlic. My brother does makes it. Back where I'm from in Puerto Rico, we have this green type of pumpkin.
Oh, okay.
So it tastes a little bit like the potato squash.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Kind of like
But
that.
it's green on the outside.
Yes.
Okay.
And yellow on the inside. And then my brother adds a little bit of potato as well, just for consistency and a little bit of cream. But actually the cream is just like a drizzle on the top, and I like it because it's like this bitter kind of like, not bitter, but a little bit of sourness.
Oh, okay.
So it counterparts the sweetness of the potato. I mean, of the pumpkin.
What's the bitter kind of sour taste coming from?
The cream.
Oh, the cream. Oh, interesting. Oh, because it's like a tangy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah, that would be good. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so our butter's melting. I'm going to add in our onions. All right, that's what we want to hear, the sizzle. They always say, like, when you go shopping, or when you go to the fair, the way to kind of entice people to purchase stuff is to have a good smell. And so at the fair, it's like the fried onions, right? Like somebody's grilling onions or whatever. At the store, they put perfume or coffee beans or something, right? Very aromatic. Well, today we're going to start with onions. Okay. And then our celery. So, I don't know how I did it last time. I just kind of cut it down the middle. Actually, I said we were going to dice it, right? Yeah, let's dice it. We got some time. Okay, well that potato or pumpkin soup sounds really good. There's a beautiful squash. I think it's a Japanese style of squash. It's called a kabocha, I think. And it's got this beautiful kind of shape, but it is green on the outside, and I believe it's kind of like a butternut on the inside. Those are wonderful. My absolute favorite soup, I have to say, it's funny. People say, well, what's your favorite thing to cook? And that's like always the hardest answer or hardest question to answer as somebody who's cooked for a living. Because it's like, well, I cook all sorts of things and I've loved it, cooking all of them. My favorite soup actually is chicken noodle. And when I get sick, I actually love Campbell's chicken noodle soup. There is just something about it. The sodium in it. My mom's always like, aren't you going to add water to that? I'm like, no, I want all the sodium. I want all of the like concentrated flavor of this soup. There's something very comforting about that. So chicken noodle soup is typically my favorite. I have made different things like, pozole is always a good one. I used to do kind of like a beef stew that had hominy, because I had a extra can of hominy kind of kicking around, and I was like, what could I do with this? And I used to make this sort of rich tomato-based big chunks of beef and just let that simmer. That was really good. I think I put corn in there, so like corn and hominy. I don't know what I was thinking, but it was really good. Yeah, that was pretty good. Okay, so we're going to let this kind of come together and saute for just a little bit until the onions are translucent. But it's going to cook down again, remember, when we put it on this pressure cooker feature. So we'll let that go a little bit. And then while that's happening, I'm going to cut these potatoes. And I always have kind of a special way to do this to get the right size. So what I do is I cut them right down the middle, kind of lengthwise. And you could just dice it from here, right? But they're going to be super huge chunks. I don't know. I'm kind of weird. And I cut it still that same way. So I've got now 2 pieces, right? And then I go down the middle and then just do my cuts that way. This is also kind of what I do when I make like a potato salad, just to get kind of nicer shapes, although it is going to get blended. So when you blend it, I like to leave a few little chunks just to kind of have some texture. Oops. But your choice too. You could leave it chunky if that's your preference. But again, we're going for creamy soup. So I'm just going to cut these. And this is 2 pounds of potatoes. So about, 6 good size potatoes. This would work fine with a russet potato as well. But I am kind of partial to these yellow ones. I was pointing out this is a really cute potato. It looks like a heart, right? Okay, well, we're going to cut that in half. All right, so yeah, this recipe doesn't take much, and that's what you want, right? When you're doing meal prep stuff, something simple, something quick, but you want the flavor. Because when you reheat it later, you still want to enjoy that flavor. And this soup will keep, it makes about 12 cups, so that's pretty good. I've frozen some of it and reheated it, and it's pretty good. I would say I recently made the recipe and had to reheat it because I had it in the freezer. And I just added a little touch of milk just to kind of loosen it up a little bit. Once you add the cheese, it's obviously going to thicken up a bit. You could add water or milk or some more stock if you wanted to. But away we go on all these potatoes. And let's see here. What else? When we head into fall, are there other things that you all like to do for meal prep? Aside from soup, any other recipes that are kind of your go-tos? Ooh, chicken and dumplings, yeah. Do you have a kind of a favorite recipe that you use? Something you've just kind of developed over the years?
Well, one that I Googled.
That works too. That works too.
There is this soup that we make back home. It's with like a chicken soup, but it's we add rice instead
Oh,
of
okay.
and instead of noodles, and it's like we call it it's called asopao, and we use it like whenever people are partying and outside, especially there's this
Oh.
tradition in Puerto Rico called parrandas. It's
Ah,
something like the posadas, but less religious, more party type.
I love it. I
And,
got to go to Puerto Rico.
and the last house of the route, they always make this pot as part of like that type of soup, so people will sober up and go on their merry way.
That sounds awesome. That's like menudo for us, right? Our Latin, Mexican folks. Although
We
that's
have
also
our
sort of the hangover cure,
we
right?
have also our version of menudo. It's called a mondongo.
Oh, I've heard of that. So what's all in the
It's
mondongo?
it's the tribe. It's like a soup. It's the tribe and all
Oh,
this
okay.
stuff.
So,
That
yeah.
I never tried it.
Oh, you have not. Okay. All right. And
I've been told I'm kind of a picky eater, but my family they love it.
yeah, there are some of those things that people just, yeah, they're great. Awesome. Okay, so our onions and celery look fantastic. So what I'm going to do is now add our potato. And, oh, I brought this cool little tool to show you guys. This is one of my favorite. It's called a bench press, I think, which sounds really crazy, but it refers to like baking when you're working with dough, and it's helpful to bench scrapers. That's what it was. Okay, sorry, my bad. Bench press, bench scraper. I'm thinking exercise. Okay, clearly the coffee is not completely kicked in. Bench scrapers, yes, because you use it to scrape the dough off the cooking surface, right? Your cooking table. Thank you. This is why I appreciate having you all here, so you can correct me when I'm, again, being kind of quirky. There you go. Yes. And it's cool because it's got also like a little ruler on the end. But for some things where you're just like, okay, I need something to help me scoop this up, it work like a charm. Yes, yes, because yeah, you can use this to just kind of get in there and do that. Okay, so we're doing this, adding our potatoes. I'm just going to give that a little stir to kind of get all that butter on these potatoes. Make sure everything's happy in the pot. And then we're going to add the full container. So this is 4 cups of vegetable stock. 4 cups of vegetable stock and 2 cups of milk. You could also do this as a non-dairy version and use like oat milk. I've done that before and it turns out really well. Almond milk. So I'm going to do half of this. Eyeball that a little bit. A little bit more. Okay. Because I forgot my measuring cup. And then I'm going to set this. So the last things we're going to add, like I said, once the potatoes are done, are our seasoning, our cheese, and then the broccoli at the end. Oh, if you wanted to, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let me just make sure I have this lid on correctly. Okay. So I'm going to switch this over to our pressure setting. And I'm going to set it for high. And then as the temperature and the time I'm going to set it for is about 12 minutes. And what this is going to do, also the other thing is there's like a seal and a vent little knob up here. You want to make sure it's on seal. And then when it's finished doing its thing, acting as a pressure cooker, it will completely let me know when it's done. And that way I can move this little thing over to vent. And that's when the steam's going to come out and it'll be safe to open this. So we're going to set it to seal, set it for 12 minutes, hit start. It'll take a few minutes to kind of build up pressure and then it'll set the timer for 12 minutes. So it's actually kind of allowing it, it's still warm, right? Like the potatoes are essentially kind of sitting and they're steaming, and then when it comes up to pressure, that'll be another 12 minutes. So if you were cooking it just in a pot, maybe 20, 25 minutes, right? Just until those potatoes are tender. Because what I'm going to do is use this little stick blender to blend it, make it a little creamier. We'll add all the rest of the ingredients, pop in the broccoli, let that finish cooking through, and then we'll have soup. So I'm going to let that do its thing, and I'm going to move us into our conversation because we have a lot to talk about today. Okay, so if you all can get your handouts out, we've got two things to go over. And we're going to start with food budgeting. So, does anybody here use a food budget or stick to one?
Well, I start out with one.
Okay, I think a lot of people
Always
do.
goes over budget.
Well, in these days, it's really tricky, right? Because everything keeps going up in price, and it has been for some time now. So, yes, I think people are pretty, have good intentions to try to kind of have an idea of what they want to spend. But it is kind of a good exercise if you can to track how much you're spending on food. I used to do this when I had more time, and I had like a spreadsheet, and every week I would just kind of like track all my receipts, and then I would know, oh God, am I really spending that much on this? Or how much did that cost me? Because sometimes I'll get, I think you all have probably had sticker shock too. You get to the end of the checkout, and you're like, $60, what did I buy? Like, and you've got a tiny bag of groceries. You're like, what just happened? So this is a reason why, like, do it as an exercise, just out of curiosity. See how much, even just if for a week, like how much you would spend. I don't know. How many trips do you take to the grocery store in a week?
It just,
About five? Okay, about five.
The least possible.
The least possible.
And just going specifically for that. But then, for your basics and stuff, I do like to trip on one, for that.
Okay.
It's still really hard though. It's just so hard to stick to a budget.
Yeah, it is.
I live right across one, so sometimes I just go there to hang out. So sometimes
You're like me. I'm the lady in the aisle who's like, oh, this is cool. I should buy this. I'm just checking things out. Yeah. Well, yeah. So where are some of the places that you all are doing your grocery shopping?
Sam's and H-E-B.
Sam's and H-E-B, Costco. Okay. Whole Foods, Trader Joe's.
right,
Okay.
natural grocers.
Natural grow. Okay, so kind of a variety of places. Yeah. My standard for staples is obviously H-E-B. Sometimes Walmart, depending on if H-E-B doesn't have the things that I like, because sometimes they have different products. But I'll mix in Trader Joe's. I don't go there regularly because I'll spend my whole budget there. Whole Foods, same thing. Central Market is a fun one for me. I had an experiment that I did for myself last weekend, actually. I was picking up spices for the next recipe that we'll be doing. And I love their bulk section of spices, and they had like 15% off. I'm like, great. But I intentionally just got a little basket because if I get a cart, even though the carts are small, I'll be like, $125. What did I buy? Because that store is just like a playground for me. Definitely kind of play around with where you're shopping. But think about it, like if you're going multiple times to the store, that's also adding to your time and to your expense, the gas to get there, right? Like some people, does anybody do curbside anymore?
I don't.
Okay.
Those kids, they don't pick out the best stuff.
Right?
They don't look at the dates and go to the back. I see those kids doing shopping,
Mm-hmm.
they don't, look at the stuff. So.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, it was convenient for some time. Every once in a while, when I'm in a pinch, I'm like, all right, I'll pay the extra. But if it's something where I know I want specifically, like for this recipe, I thought about it, but I was like, no, I want to make sure I get the right size broccoli crown because they're going to put just two tiny ones, and that's not going to be enough for what I'm doing for this recipe. So yeah, it's kind of like a balancing act of like, is it convenience enough and you're just fine because you're like, oh, I'm just getting household toiletry kind of stuff and gallon of milk, like that's cool, they can't mess that up, right? So think about that too. But yeah, food budgeting, take a look. If you're doing multiple shopping trips, typically what is recommended is like save all your receipts if you go several times throughout the month, and then tally them all up and divide by the number of trips, right? And then that's about how much you're spending. But break it down. Like I would go even further and take out all the toiletries, like the non-food, and just focus on the food specifically. So let's take a look at this. So that's a great way to kind of get an estimate, a starting place of how much you're spending just on your groceries. But some other things to consider are, well, how much do you want to spend, right? Just based on your budget, what you're comfortable spending each month. A guideline is typically 10 to 15% of your monthly income, but that's after taxes. So think about that, roughly kind of what you have to spend, and 10%, 15%. I did that and I was like, I'm not spending nearly enough. I thought I was spending too much. But I cook a lot, and I typically tend to have like things on hand. And so when I'm cooking, like this recipe, we'll get to how much it costs in a minute, like is not a lot. But think about like what works for your budget. What you're comfortable with. Something I mentioned already. So tracking the categories of the food, so groceries versus non-foods household items, to get a real true baseline of how much your food is costing you. And then, will your budget include a portion for dining out? So, who here supplements their weekly meals by going out to eat, picking up something? And it could be anything, right? It could be like what they call fast casual. So, you're picking something up at Chick fil A, or, I had a burger from McDonald's yesterday because I was in a hurry and it was right there. So, those things can be included in your food budget, and then just figure out like how much of that. I kind of consider it dining out sort of entertainment. But every once in a while, I'll go out and eat something and I add that in. Could even be like those delivery apps, right? Like the Uber Eats or the DoorDash. Anybody use any of those?
I don't.
Yeah,
They're expensive.
they are. And they've gotten even more expensive. But in a pinch, sometimes when I'm really tired, I'm like, okay. Or I'll do it, I'll sort of compromise and I'll order it and I'll go pick it up if it's like, because then I don't have to pay for all of that.
Some of the apps will do the free delivery, some of them.
Yeah, yeah. If you, especially like, I guess if you use them more often, then it kind of, they have deals and stuff.
I don't, but I know my son does.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's,
It's free, it's free.
yeah, but it does add up. Those things add up
Because
pretty
it's not
quickly.
free, because then now you have to tip them where you didn't have to.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. And especially for younger people, they don't think about all those things, and it adds up, and they're like, "Where did my paycheck go?" Well, track it, and you're going to start to quickly see. Um, so once you've tracked your spending, set a budget and then test it, right? See if you can stick to it. Maybe you're still going to go over a little bit. And then, but by how much, right? But it'll really give you a good idea on where you're spending, where your dollars are going, and what particular things. And then you can adjust as you need to, and then stick to a budget that you're comfortable with. So, yeah, when I was tracking it pretty regularly, I did it actually for all of my expenses just to kind of see. And food was one of the biggest ones because I love to cook. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I'm spending like X percentage of my total income of all my expenses on food. How is that? But I cook a lot. And so for me, that made sense because I wasn't dining out as much. I was cooking more at home. And I was like, that's okay because that works for me. So think about those things as you're thinking about a budget. But I encourage you all to, even just for a week, just kind of tally up your receipts and be like, how much did I spend? And gosh, do I need to be spending that much? Or yeah, no, this is right on target for me. I'm cool. This is working for me. So a couple things I wanted to point out were some additional resources, digital resources that are great for helping you to stick to a budget. And one of them is a site called goodcheapeats.com. It's a husband and wife who basically found themselves in a lot of debt and had to, by choice, or well, by by what happened to them, their circumstances, had to figure out how to keep their expenses low. And when it came to food, they came up with this cool system called the Good Cheap Eats system, and it's basically planning, all of your meals, using up leftovers. Nothing, nothing crazy, but they have this three-step plans or this three-step system. So part of it is planning your meals, then shopping and making sure that you're making the best choices when you're shopping, taking advantage of, discounts and things like that. And then cooking your meals and doing the meal prep part of it so that you're not eating out as much or dining out as much. So check them out. They've got some great money saving strategies. And I like it because it's like practical advice, which I think is good for everybody to know. And then the one on the bottom left is the one that I had mentioned to you all that I started with, and it's been around a long time. It's called bigoven.com. And it has two features, actually three. So it has over 1 million recipes. So if you're ever out of ideas, please check them out because they have a huge catalog of recipes because they've been around for so long. And they have these two features. One on the top there, sorry, it's a little small, but it basically will tell you how to cook with leftovers. I don't know if you all, or if this is still on, but like on the weekends, NPR used to run a show and it was kind of like, I forget who was the host of it, but it was like, what's in your refrigerator and tell me what you would make with it. And I love that kind of stuff. So this is kind of that feature on their website where it's give me up to 3 ingredients that I now have right now on hand. And it will basically like generate the recipes of things that you can make with those ingredients. So I thought that was kind of cool. And that way you're using up what you already have and you don't have to buy more. And then the other thing is, again, when we run out of ideas, right? Like we're looking at recipes and I'm like, oh, now I got to go out and buy this and I got to take the time to go do that. Well, this has inspiration for recipes by the course. So if you're looking for breakfast ideas or dinner ideas, it'll tell you that. It also does it by the editors of the site, and so that can be kind of fun, sort of their favorites, their picks, and then also by collection. So that might also be kind of like a specific area or category of food. So that's, I think, helpful when we're trying to figure out, well, where are we going to start? What do we need? Or I'm tired of this. My family's complaining. We have this all the time. Let's do something different. Yeah. Can you please stop making this? We've had it enough. Okay, so as you can hear and see, there's a little bit of steam rising. And so this thing is kind of now doing its thing, right? It will stop once it's reached pressure, and it'll set that timer for 12 minutes. And then it'll tell me when it'll count down that clock. Excuse me. It'll count down that clock and then let me know when this little, see that little, you probably can't see it. There's like a little red button that just went up. Now we're at full pressure and it's going to set this timer in a minute and start counting down. And then when it finishes and it gets to 0, that little red button will depress and it'll go down, and then I'll vent it and we'll have soup. Okay, so one last thing here, plant-based on a budget. We're going to talk a little bit more about how to do meal prep and meal planning when you have specific dietary restrictions, right? Because that's another thing where you could spend a lot of money because some of those ingredients might be a little bit more, but what are some ways that you can do that? And this is kind of a teaser for next week, but Plant-Based on a Budget is one of my favorite sites. There's a gal who has really great recipes there, and many of them are vegan, so obviously fewer ingredients, they're going to be less expensive. But she has a nice just kind of a great site. Again, you know me, I don't like a lot of pop-ups and things like that. Her site is beautifully done. But she also, I noticed, has free weekly meal plans. So we were talking about some of those resources. She has that as well. But again, it's like great ideas for fewer ingredients and for folks who have food sensitivities as well. So any favorite resources you all have for like food budgeting or kind of money saving tips that you try to stick to?
I used to do coupons, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, coupons have kind of come and gone, although now there's digital coupons. Like every once in a while, I'll be at,
time consuming.
yeah, because you have to have the app and they're like, scan this. And so I don't know. I mean, some people probably favor that. I know like my niece was doing one of those couponing things where you would do all this stuff in a certain way at a certain store, and then you'd pay like $3 for $200 worth of stuff. Like that's a whole art. She really was good at it. But then she was buying things, not just food. It was like laundry detergent and shampoos and like all of the deals when you kind of gather it all
A lot of
together.
times you're buying stuff that you really wouldn't buy.
Well, she had a big family, so it worked for her. Like they used everything. But yeah, if it's just kind of like you or a spouse or somebody else, a smaller household, then some of those things just don't make sense. The things that I think we mentioned in the first week, like kind of making sure you're aware of, they still do weekly sales at most grocery stores. So if you have a moment to kind of plug in and see if there's like a little, my mom always used to love the little paper flyer that would be at the store when you enter. Now you can just see the signage, right? You're like, oh, this is on sale. Or I know HEB does a lot of like, buy this, you get this free. Those aren't always great because again, you end up with things that are like, I don't really need that or I don't use that. And so I try to kind of like make sure it's something that I need. And so I don't just overbuy because that's what they want you to do. But yeah, there's definitely, I would say, Costco, if you're members of Costco or Sam's and it works for you and you've got the household size to support that, like those are great things. I always recommended when I was teaching young adults, like if you're in a dorm and you can go in on things with people and you have the storage space for it, like that makes sense. But if you're by yourself, like you don't need the giant jar of peanut butter because it's probably going to go rancid by the time you get to the bottom of it, right? Like you got to be smart about buying things in bulk too. So that's kind of always been my advice on that. Okay, so if you guys turn the sheet around, we've got food costing or recipe costing. And I wanted us to focus specifically on this because this will also help you see where your dollars are going and just how much you're spending on things if you are making things at home. So what I did was I costed out our recipe for today because there's not a lot of ingredients. I used the prices on basically HEBs, like, when you do curbside. So those prices are a little inflated, as you know, because it's curbside. But it's a pretty good close estimate. And so, cost per serving is a great way to track how much you're spending on food. And the basic formula is to add up the total cost of your ingredients by the recipe you make, and then divide by the total number of servings. And that final number is food budgeting gold, because it'll help you see where your dollars are going and where you can adjust. So basically, you see there in that little box on the right, to cost this recipe, we're going to need the full list of our ingredients in the recipe, the yield or how many servings it makes. And so, for example, this soup makes 12 cups, and then the cost of your ingredients. So I did a little legwork for us, and I found those prices. I'm kind of a kitchen math nerd. I love this sort of stuff. So I'll walk us through it. This is definitely, if you have a short little recipe, if you wanted to do that, just to kind of see where you land on pricing. It's kind of fun. But I'll kind of walk you through how I did this. And on the last one, because I ran out of space, I'll have to remember how I did that because I wasn't able to fit all of the calculation on there. But the full calculation, as we see in a minute, is actually kind of a nice little surprise. So we'll talk about that too. But so basically, the 2 large broccoli crowns, which I said was about 2.5 pounds, you can actually buy them by the each, right? It's 76 cents each, so I multiplied that times 2 because we've got 2 in our recipe. Gives you $1.52. So that's how we're going to do it. For each item, we're taking the actual cost of it and finding how much we're using in the recipe and doing that math. Then we total all of it up and divide it by the 12 servings. Okay, you guys still with me?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. For the potatoes, so here's one where I could have just bought 2 pounds of potatoes, right? Because you can buy them loose. But the better deal was to buy the 5 pounds of potatoes. And I'm like, well, if I want to make this soup again or double it, I'll have a better deal on the cost of potatoes. So this is definitely expensive for me because potatoes used to be really cheap, and potatoes have always been one of those staples to have because they're so inexpensive. But yellow potatoes, kind of a little fancier, right? So it's $5.97 for a 5-pound bag, so about $1.19 a pound. And since we're using 2 pounds, it's $2.39, so still not bad. 1 onion by itself, 67 cents each, or you could get a better deal if you wanted to buy a whole bag of onions, right? But in this case, I was like, well, I'm not going to be cooking a lot this week, so I just want 1 onion. The celery, you can buy the ones that are already like cut and in the package. That's going to cost you a little more, right? Because it's already cleaned and prepped for you. But I just bought the regular bunch of celery, and that was $1.49. And so this is sort of an estimate. Just because I know cooking, I know there's roughly like 8 to 10 stalks per bunch. Depends, right? Because that can change. Lately, where I shop, it's been really skinny stalks of celery. So it was roughly about 8. And so I did the math there and said, okay, so each stalk is about 19 cents. I've got 4.75 cents for my total 4 stalks of broccoli. The unsalted butter. So butter, kind of dairy stuff, that's always going to be a little more expensive. That's why bakeries and all of that have very small margins because their ingredients are so expensive. And butter is one of those that has gone up in cost all the time. So it's $2.46 for a little 2-stick or 8-ounce package of butter. And I know that, let's see, hold on, let me look at my numbers here. I'm only using half of that stick, so it's 2 ounces. So 31 cents an ounce gives me 62 cents for the total amount of butter. And then the olive oil, the larger container of olive oil that you purchase, the better the price, right? But I didn't want that much. I just had a small bottle that I used for costing. So $8.28 for a 17-ounce bottle gives me 40 cents an ounce, and we're only using an ounce, so 2 tablespoons is an ounce. So that's 40 cents. So you can see, like, as we're going through this, where your expensive ingredients are, right? Olive oil is always going to be one of those, but that's kind of a staple. So you tend to, if you cook a lot and that's what you use, you're going to use a slightly larger bottle. It's going to be a better deal. Things like that are what I want you all to consider. The vegetable stock, we're using the whole carton, so that was $1.98. Same with the milk. I got a larger one today for class, but you could just get the little pint, and that's only $1. I was really surprised that was $1, because how often do you see anything that costs $1 anymore? It's very rare, right? Way to go, HEB. And then for the Gouda cheese, you could simply use shredded cheese, and you could use the block and shred it yourself, and that would be less expensive. I wanted to get a little fancy because I didn't realize they had shredded Gouda, and I was like, that sounds great. Let's do that. But that was a little pricey, right? Because $2.69 for this little package, and then for the amount that we're using, which is a cup, it would be $1.51. So as again, we're looking through the list of our ingredients, that's one of our more higher priced ingredients, but we're gonna splurge. We're going to splurge for flavor. And then the spices are kind of a little bit trickier, and there's a resource that I couldn't fit on here, but I'm going to tell you about. So when I was doing a lot of recipe development and building curriculum, this was something that I would do, but I would have like a spreadsheet where, if you're using the same kind of ingredients, you can have the cost already set up. And so I would have my spreadsheets of like, oh, okay, I know a teaspoon of this costs this. And that was easy for me to refer back to, so I could easily just cost out something. If you are kind of a geek like me when it comes to that, go ahead and do that. But so for the garlic powder, $2.58 for this little jar, right? So breaking that down by the ounce, it's $1.10. So that's when we say buy your spices in bulk. Because $1.10 for just a little bit, like that's crazy. These things, they seem like they're inexpensive, but you could get it much cheaper if you just need a little bit in bulk. But I know, just in doing a little bit of research, that this jar has roughly 22 teaspoons. And there is a website called Chef's Resources that had like a dry spice yield for teaspoons per spice, which I loved. But yeah, it's called Chef's Resources, or you could just Google Chef's Resources dry spice yield, and you'll come to this site. But after many years of doing this, I kind of have my little formulas. But basically, it came out to 12 cents per teaspoon, which I think is a little high for a spice. But again, spices are typically going to be a little more costly depending on things like what you use, right? So like if you think about saffron, that's one where the way that spice is harvested is picked by hand, and it's so laborious, so the price of that is expensive. But other spices, I mean, this is kind of a common one, and in a pinch, if I need it, I'll just buy the jar. But I use this quite a bit, so I always tend to buy it in bulk because it's cheaper. The salt and pepper, the salt is crazy because, you can get that little table salt container. It's only 64 cents. This is another deal. Like, how many things can you buy for less than $1? The salt, and it has roughly 982 half teaspoons in that 26-ounce little, it's like the little container. That'll last you for a long time. I don't know if you can get salt any cheaper. That's a pretty good deal. So it's like less than 7 cents for what we're using in here. And then the black pepper is actually always going to be more expensive than the salt, right? So that's about 99 cents an ounce. And then I know roughly it's about 24 teaspoons and 2 ounces. We're only using a quarter teaspoon. So it was about 2 cents per quarter teaspoon. So all of that gets added up, divided by our 12 servings. And so you see here in the little circle, it costs $10.98 to make this full batch of soup. Not bad, right? You take that and divide it by 12, that gives us less than $1 per serving, so 92 cents per serving. And when you're thinking about a soup that has so few ingredients, that's pretty good. If you get it under $1, you're doing all right. So this is one of those recipes that I said not only in flavor, but also for cost, like, and the yield of it. It makes quite a bit. So if it's just you eating it, like I could eat this soup all week. It's pretty tasty. We got about two minutes to go. But yeah, so what do you guys think about this? Like, I know we kind of walked through a lot of the detail, but is this something that is a bit of an eye-opener, or have you all done this before?
No, I mean, for you to find the ingredients to
Yeah, because I just normally go to the grocery store and just buy ingredients.
Just
like
buy.
It's a special recipe.
Mhm.
And then it's like, oh my gosh, I spent that much, but never thought like, okay, actually, how much am I really using of all of those?
Yeah. It's a little bit more of a breakdown, right?
And even for costly ingredients, I mean, thank goodness for bulk, you can pretty much
Mhm.
find everything. So just,
Yeah.
okay, I don't need to buy this. When am I going to use it?
Exactly. It just helps you
Nutmeg
make,
is one,
yeah, it helps you make more
Spices.
informed decisions about the things that you're purchasing, right? Yeah, to break it down this way. Most people don't. And well, the other thing that I didn't put on here, but kind of goes along with when we talk about sort of food math, is unit pricing. And are you all familiar with what that is? So that is something that's already the math done for you at the grocery store.
Oh,
So if you
I
look at
see.
any ingredient or anything that you purchase, there's on next to the label it'll say unit price, right? So for the full package of whatever it is divided by how much is in there, whether it's by an ounce or by the number of each in there, it gives you this is how much one of these costs, and you can compare it. And sometimes you'll that's also how you save, right? Because you'll say, oh well, if I buy this and it's a big package and I know I'm going to use this, this is much better than just buying this one over here that has maybe the quantity that I need, but it's less. So that's another great way to save on things because it's already done the math for you. I don't remember when that came out, but I know it was huge when I first started in my career and doing like nutrition classes because that also was like people were blown away by the math that was already available to show them like how to save money, and it continues today. Like it's just like a nutrition label, right? Like that was something that's evolved. Now sometimes you'll see like side by side, which I love, the nutrition information for one serving versus the nutrition information if you eat the whole thing. And they did that intentionally because people were like, I'm just going to eat this whole package of whatever, but they weren't seeing like how much they were consuming. So I love that there are some things that are already out there for us to take advantage of, but sometimes people forget. Like even I think for me, like I don't look at it. I know it's there. Every once in a while I will because I'll be like, yeah, that's the better deal, but I don't really think I'm gonna ever use all of that. I'm still gonna get this one. So in my mind, I'm still kind of doing the mental math and being like, I'll have this conversation just to entertain this, but no, it's still gonna work for me to get this.
Well, for me, it's just that's 90 cents per serving. But yet you go to Panera and you're paying, what, 7, 8 bucks for 8
For a little cup of soup. Exactly.
It's like, whoa,
Exactly.
gotta make.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's another, thing to kind of, again, sort of doing the mental math. This is why I wanted to make sure I included this as part of our conversation because we just kind of go about and we don't really think about it, right? I mean, I'm guilty of the same thing. And just knowing like, okay, great. If I can have a little bit of information at my fingertips to make decisions, I will definitely take advantage of that. Not always. Sometimes I just want to go and get the whatever, right? Like I'll splurge on certain things because I know, okay, this week my budget allows for that. But on weeks when I'm like, no, I got to stick to it, Raquel. Like I won't go to Trader Joe's. I won't go to Central Market, like, cause I know I'm not safe there on those weeks. So yeah, it's just helpful to have all of that. While we were talking, this is done, but it's counting down before I can vent it. So I'm going to let it do its thing, and then we may need to wrap up the class so we can finish this. But I hope this information has been helpful for you all. I want to make sure that we finish up our soup and give you guys a chance to try it, but that might be off camera because that's all we have for today. So any other comments or questions?
I do have a question. This is a sidebar. Like when it comes to purchasing spices, how long do they typically last? 6 months, a year?
Yeah, I would say on a good day, if you've stored them in a place where they haven't been exposed to a lot of heat or light, like maybe I go through spices fairly quickly. So like a month, I would say.
Oh.
Anything past that, because again, like spices, especially if they're already ground and pulverized, you've already broken them down. They're starting to oxidize, right? It's like when you buy a car and you drive it off the lot, like you've already lost the depreciation, the cost of that thing has gone down. Same thing with spices. Like once they're taken out of their original form, their shape or whatever they are, you're already breaking it down. If you're like most people storing it next to your stove where there's a lot of heat, right? Like because you want to be able to have quick access to it, and things are getting steamy in there, like you'll begin to notice like the taste difference if you purchase like a little package of spices from your bulk section and you use that on day one and then you use it a month later. It's not going to have the same flavor. It will have broken down.
Well, yeah, like she was talking about like nutmeg. You use it maybe once or twice a year.
Right. And then you're like, oh, I
It's
still
like you
have
got
this.
to
And
buy
you're
it
like,
every year. So it's like
yeah, ideally, if you want the freshest spices, I really don't keep anything longer than a month. I am guilty, like everybody, of some spices that are kind of back there. Like I've been kicking around this cinnamon for like years, and I'm like, I use it for myself because I love it. It's a special kind of cinnamon. It's like a Vietnamese cinnamon, so it's a lot spicier. And I just don't want to get rid of it. So I keep using it and keep using it. I have my newer jar too, but I'm like, I'm just going to keep using this
So
because
does it help to keep it in the refrigerator to kind of make it last?
you can. Yeah, some people keep their spices in the refrigerator or the freezer. But like I always joke, like things that go in the freezer are things that go to die because we forget that they're in there. So, and then they can be exposed to even more, like, they get the crystallization and just it's not the proper temperature. But in the refrigerator, things that I'll store in there sometimes are like flax seeds, especially if they're whole, just because, they will go rancid as well. I had a friend who said she never kept olive oil out. She would always have the main bottle that she would buy in the refrigerator. And as she needed it for cooking, she would just put a little portion out to kind of come up to temperature to cook with. And she was a chef, and she's like, people are doing it wrong. And I was like, I know, but it's just so easy to leave it on the counter. So I always thought about that, and I tried it, but it was always kind of inconvenient for me because I was like, oh, I needed that right now, and I forgot to take it out. So, but she was, I guess, very good and in the routine of doing that. But
How about the liquid, like vanilla and other things? Does that lose?
that also, yeah,
It does.
exactly. So when you have those peppermint, extracts or whatever that you're using during the holidays for baking, and you're like, oh, I still have some of that, and you're like, it's a year later, like, oh, it smells a little funky, like it's got more of an alcohol smell, like those things will break down too.
Okay.
I actually just had some vanilla that I've had for a while, and I was making some hot chocolate, and I add a little bit of that, and I was like, smelled it, and I was like, nah, it's off, and so I didn't use it. But yeah, those things can definitely. And again, like we tend to think of, where do we typically store those things? Where are some of your spices and extracts stored right now?
Mine is right next to
There's this little
my oven
tub
and my stove.
Yeah.
It's right there in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I am too. I'm guilty of that too. Mine's a little bit off, and kind of in a nice closed cabinet, like it's not sitting on top of my oven. I've seen that before, where people just have like a spice rack on top of the actual oven, and it's like, oh my God, you're killing your spices. But sometimes that's kind of the way that your kitchen is also set up, where you're like, I don't have space for this. Or you sometimes can see like cool, what I love are modern kitchens that have like those pull-out drawers
Those
that,
are nice.
yeah, where you can kind of set up those little racks and you can see everything fully displayed. Or get like a lazy Susan where you can kind of spin it around to see your spices. And then they even have like racks that you can put in pantries, which is a nice idea because it still keeps you close to your kitchen, but away from like the actual heat of your oven. But yeah, those are some great questions, you guys. Okay, so it's still doing its thing here. 5 minutes. Oh, because it was, okay, sorry about that. But yeah, so we're going to wrap up class. We'll finish off the soup, and then hopefully folks at home, if you give this a try, give it a thumbs up. I think you're going to enjoy it. Next week, just a teaser for next week, we are going to be doing a cauliflower style, kind of tikka masala style cauliflower dish. So again, talking more about like, how do we make dishes that are kind of substitutes for other proteins, right? So food sensitivities, but maybe doing some vegetarian, vegan recipes. It's a really delicious one. I guarantee you guys will love that too. And what are we talking about for nutrition? I can't remember. That's going to be a surprise. So stay tuned. But thank you all for joining us, and we'll finish the soup off camera. And yeah, we'll see you back next week.
Yay.